many more buttons on my shirt can I
Are you Italian? How many jokes?
Well,
How much joke do you?
so for people who wondered what the hell we're doing, that was a version of the song Yesterday When I Was Young by Charles Aznavour, sung by the British singer Mark Alban. It's a really great version, I think. I really love that version. So we were listening before we put the camera on to some original Aznavour recordings, but that I think is really great. So I wanted to just sort of stick that on. Anyway, so here we are. What's this got to do with the show? Who knows? Hopefully we'll find out. But I'm joined by none other than
The one,
the only, Mr Bonapart. How do you like to be addressed? Mr Bonapart?
yeah, Bonaparte.
Bone her parts?
Bonaparte. T.
Yeah,
But
so
Bonaparte.
good to see you, Troy Francis, dating
Good
coach.
to see you, Troy.
Mr Bonapart, you may remember from a previous video that we did, because we're back in Bogota.
That was in Bogota, yeah.
We're back in Bogota,
Yeah.
In Colombia. We did a video of, when was it this year or was it?
No, that was last November, I think. Yeah.
So we did a video, so maybe you can introduce what you do, but fundamentally you're a sex expert. So
Sexpert.
Sexpert. So we were talking about that because I know nothing about sex basically. You know, I thought it just was meant to last for 2 minutes. I didn't
I'm the
realise.
coach.
So we were talking about that. We're going to talk about that today, but probably just take this off in a slightly different direction as well, because we don't want to just go through the same, you know, like basic stuff again. But anyway, sorry. Why don't you just sort of introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us how you got into it and all the rest of it.
I think we should start on how did we meet each other?
No, we can't tell them that. That's
The official or the unofficial?
How did we meet? Well, we met each other through James Tusk.
Through James Tusk, yeah, he introduced us, and we had I had a really good instant connection with you.
Well, yes, I felt I did as well, but I don't know. You know, sometimes I think, because you're a very charismatic man, and I imagine that you get on very well with a lot of people. So I was thinking, he's saying that, but does he actually like me, or is he just, you know?
I often have that. Like you were having a conversation with Joe yesterday, and the first impression that Joe, and he told me, he said, when I saw your picture, I thought that you were fake and you were arrogant.
Me?
No, Joe, seeing me.
About you?
Yeah, he told me you're fake, you're arrogant, of course you're French. And then he was like, actually, you're nice, you're a nice guy.
I think, and Joe, I've done a video with him earlier as well, that will run on my channel at some point, but also a great guy, you know. But no, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude or anything. But I was having a similar conversation about James actually with my girlfriend, because again, you know, I have what I believe to be a very strong bond with James. I get on very well with him. I find him a fascinating character. I think he's a multi-layered, you know, kind of guy, without blowing too much smoke up his butt. And you know, I think he likes me. But then again, you see, with people who have that kind of charisma, he draws a lot of people in.
Yes.
So I then sometimes think, yeah, but I'm just one of many.
Yeah.
I'm not special.
Yeah.
So am I special to you, Bonaparte?
Yes, it takes one to know one. I love this English expression. It takes one to know one. We recognize each other.
I think we do.
And
I think we do.
need each other energy, and I think it's this kind of connection. You can't fake it.
I believe so, yeah, and I would say the same thing about James as well. I mean, I could be being entirely naive, but I do think that we, like, it's great to be able to meet people that you have that. I think you're one of them. I think James for me is one of them. I think Joe actually is. I don't know Joe very well. We're getting to know each other. I think he's a great guy, and there's other people in my life outside of this industry who I have that with, but not hundreds. Do you know what I mean? It's quite selective, you know.
But especially nowadays, like when you find your tribe, when you really connect between men, because it's so like now we don't trust each other, but when you really connect with other men, I think it's very powerful, and it's something that a lot of men are missing nowadays.
Well, look, so here's another thing, right, which is maybe practical for the audience, which is I think I get a lot of guys who get in contact, and they are maybe 30s, maybe early 40s. They're not at college anymore. Maybe they've got some shitty job they don't like. And aside from problems with women, they will say, well, how do you make friends with men? Now, I think we are actually in quite a fortunate position because of the kind of work that we do, and we travel. And So for me, that's never massively been a problem
Mm-hmm.
because, well, a couple of reasons. Firstly, because I'm in 12-step recovery. So, you know, that kind of just immediately
This
gives
bond,
you,
mhm.
you know, so I haven't yet, but I could go to a meeting here. There's probably some English speaking meetings. I could meet people who I would immediately have some kind of a bond with. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. But also because of the line of work that we're in, where we
have to connect. We have to.
yeah.
Be
So
social.
and one thing I would say about James Tusk is he is kind of a master.
Social butterfly.
Well, he just brings people in, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And that's
Have you always been like, when you were young, did you have some male friends? Was it easy for you to connect with other men? Or you were kind of the lone wolf?
I was kind of a lone wolf, really. It wasn't that I didn't have friends, but I found socializing to be very difficult.
Yeah.
So, but more than that, it was also, I didn't always want to do it. Like, because I'm quite, do you know what I mean?
Happy
Like,
by
I'm quite
yourself.
like, yeah, fuck off. So, not only, so say the really cool kids at school, I would find it kind of intimidating
Yeah.
to become friendly with them. But there's also a part of me of like, well, I don't fucking want to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it was a problem. It was also a problem with girls. And it took me a long time, I would say, to become different, you know, to become somebody who I believe now I am quite socially adept.
Yeah.
You know, but it's still very selective because
Yeah.
I am a bit of an introvert. Like I do, like, well, you were there.
As you should. As you should.
Yeah.
You should be selective.
Well,
though.
you were there this morning, weren't you? When I shut the
Do you
door on the
really
three and you're
want
like,
to
fuck
talk
off. But what about you? Because you seem like a very gregarious sort of guy.
I was always driven towards people. When
Yeah.
I was young, I was the funny one. And interesting because I was a fat kid,
Really?
really fat. I developed the skill of being the fun guy, the funny
Yeah,
guy, to
okay,
be able
okay.
to socialize, and so I got that. And being a bartender as well. Like when I became a bartender, it was like, this is it.
Well, it's interesting you say that because that happened actually for me as well. So when I was, I guess it was 18, 19, whatever, you know, I went to university, started working bar. And actually, if you're looking at my sort of dating side of things, but also just getting on with guys,
Yeah.
that was a game changer.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that I ended up doing that
Yeah.
because it gives you it gives you a leg up in terms of socialising, doesn't it?
It's the best social school.
But I'll tell you something weird, right? Because I've got this weird like dual personality. Because on the one hand, I was introverted, meaning that I actually liked my own company.
Yeah.
But I've also always been a bit of a show off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I quite like to sometimes be
center
the
of
centre of attention.
attention.
So there's this weird sort of duality that's there, and I don't really know why or how to explain it, but
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, maybe.
Exactly. So, you know, this isn't a psychoanalytic, or maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah.
Tell me about your channel.
Tell me about your mother. But well, I'll tell you one thing. Recently, my aunt on my mother's side sadly passed away quite recently, and she had mental health problems later in her life. But she was a ballet dancer.
Okay.
And my mother was shared some photos with me of her as a ballet dancer, and she was quite popular. She got into quite a big European ballet, crew, and she would travel Europe and do these
Okay.
big stages and stuff. And my mother herself was also studied acting and also was an actress for a period of time back in the swinging 60s. You know?
Yeah.
So I think there's that element in the family.
Following the steps and
Yeah, not that I, I'm obviously talentless really, but except talking on camera. But it's sort of, I think, that desire to sort of be in front of people is present. But it's also tempered by a desire just to be alone and fuck everybody else.
yeah.
But you was different.
So actually, that was very similar to you because my father was known locally to tell stories. He would tell stories to the kids and create events. So I always saw my father surrounded by people, being very social, making jokes, everybody around him.
Yeah.
So I got that subconsciously when I was a kid. He wasn't teaching me, but I got that, by soaking it in as a kid, and then I developed that growing up.
You have sisters, brothers?
Yeah, 2 sisters.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's kind of, I mean, how people develop the personality that they have. But so just to put some context to this, we are here. We're teaching a bunch of guys. We're teaching them social skills. You know, we took them all to a club last night. Night before, we took them to bars. We're trying to help them. Obviously, you know, predominantly this is about dating, but further than that, it's also about just social skills and getting on with people and stuff. And what was I going to say? Some of them find it really difficult. So is it? Well, I already know the answer to this, but is it something that you can learn?
Yes, definitely. It's a skill. I always say, so you might be lucky and have, like you and I, have parents or family who are used to being like the center of attention.
Yeah.
But if you're not born with family or parents like that, it's a skill to develop. You're not born, you might have talent, but you're not born with the skill of being confident, and you can learn the skill.
So, all right, do you think if we just, this is not going to be entirely about dating, but obviously it's a dating channel, so you know that's an important aspect. Do you think that you need to be a sort of extroverted kind of not shy person in order to get girls, or is there a different way if that's not your personality?
No, I do believe that you can be an introvert and get women and have great connection with women. You just have to find your style. But if you're an introvert and you stay at home and you play video games and you don't meet people, you're never gonna connect with women and have
it's difficult. So another thing I would say is that my father was always very charismatic and quite narcissistic, I think. He would sit
dark triads.
Well, I mean, it's certainly quite narcissistic. And my grandfather even more so. So they would basically, both of them would basically sit at the table or, you know, sit on the couch, you know, brandy in hand, and just sort of talk. And there was this innate assumption that they were right about everything and everybody else was an idiot.
Okay.
My father once said to me, I am the most intelligent person that I've ever met.
Very humble.
And he is an intelligent guy, but is he? I mean, you know, Elon Musk might disagree. There's different types of intelligence. Anyway, the point is that just from my point of view, I suppose I came from that slightly. On the one side, there was this quite theatrical side, and on the other side, there was this quite charismatic, quite narcissistic side. But the funny thing was, in spite of all of that, my confidence was fucked.
Okay.
So when I was at school, I wasn't none of that translated. It kind of did in my head.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I sort of thought, well, I'm better than all these fucks. But I wasn't able to
express it,
yeah. So that was a huge problem for me. It was a huge problem in socializing with other guys. And it was a huge, huge problem in terms of dating.
With women.
Yeah. Does that, I mean, but it sounds like you were a bit different. It sounds like you were out of the box relatively. What was your time at school like? Did you get on with people and all that?
I got along really well with people, but
what about the popular kids and all that shit? Were you alright with that?
Yeah, I was friend with them. I managed to be friend with them, but I was the nice guy. I was friend with everyone, but as soon as I would go and see a girl and be like, hey, can we? She was like, no, thank you. You're my best friend. So forget about it.
Yeah, man. It's just, I mean,
how many times I've been called like, oh, you're like my brother.
Oh, you're like, so nice. You're so nice. It's kind of funny actually, because I did this video on a little short video on YouTube, Instagram recently, and I was talking about this, and I said, you know, I was hopeless at school because what would tend to happen, and it's weird because there were girls who expressed interest, there were girls who very clearly liked me, but what I would always do, which is terrible dating advice, I mean I was only very young, like a teenager then, but I would always just fixate on a certain girl. So it's like, oh, Sandra in mathematics, oh my God, she's amazing. Yeah. I'm going to try and be really friendly to her and see if something happened. In the meantime, you know, I get other girls who are sort of, you know, they were making it pretty obvious that they like me, but I was shunning them in the hope that Sandra would suddenly like me.
Get jealous.
And she never did. And she
Sandra,
would always,
if you watch that.
Sandra, listen, you know, I'm here. Like, you know, get in touch. Try Francis. But yeah, so as a strategy, that was obviously terrible because some of those other girls were nicer themselves. And secondly, obviously we know pre-selection jealousy can be a very powerful thing. So I had no clue about that stuff. And I think that's an important point actually, because that's an example of how most of us as men or boys, we don't know the dynamics of this stuff, do we? At all.
Nobody is teaching us that.
Yeah, absolutely. At all. And maybe we can start to segue into your field of expertise then. I mean, I lost my virginity, I think, at about 19, 20.
Okay.
So it's fairly late for some people, whatever. But I also had no clue about sex either. So even if, and I think that played into it a bit, because I remember getting a girl back to my place once when I was at college, which is sort of 18 or whatever, 17, 18. She came back to my house, she was in my bed. I had no clue what to do.
Where do I go?
I had no clue what to do. So, we kind of like hugged and kissed a little bit, and then, we were sort of like, nothing happened because I didn't know what the hell to do.
Yeah.
And then she's like, all right, anyway, I better get going now, see you later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying maybe that's a little bit young, but I think that lack of knowledge about sex
Positive sexual education
is a real roadblock for people. And then you get these guys who are like older, they're in their 30s, they still don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so then they self-sabotage because they'll get with a girl and, So just tell us a little bit about what you do now.
Sure. So I help men to develop sexual skills, to get rid of sexual shame, which is a big one, to become sexually confident, and to have the best sex of their life. And at the same time also to become more masculine, more authentic. That's something that we've been talking a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
And and to really become confident, because I believe that it transcends women. It's more, okay, you do that with women, it's great, but most importantly, how do you feel about yourself? Do you know that you're a great lover? Do you know that you're a great man? Do you know that you're strong?
Yeah.
And it's developing these qualities which are very, very exciting for women.
Yes.
A woman who sees a strong masculine man, even if he's not a great lover, she will be turned on by that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if he is a great lover, the whole package.
Well, thank you. Oh, sorry, you weren't referring to. So how did you get into this? You were a personal trainer, I think, for a while?
I was a personal trainer, but
in London.
In London.
Yeah.
Big struggle in my sex life. Suffered from premature ejaculation for more than 10 years. Porn addiction. Never had like my toxic ex-girlfriend. I mean, the whole package reverse, And so what was interesting is that because I had premature ejaculation, I wanted to become a good lover. I was I'm gonna be shit in bed, but I want to be a good lover. So I started to learn to read books, and because I became better, and then I managed to get rid of premature ejaculation, I was like, if I managed to do it for me, I want to do it for others. And I met a sex coach during a festival, and she told me, look, you're made for that. And I studied and I became a sex coach.
Did you do, I mean, I don't know what if there's formal qualifications for this stuff. Did you do that, or was that not necessary?
So that was more based on personal training, and then I specialized in sex, especially sexuality for men.
Yeah.
So psychology and physically, because everybody thinks, it's all about like being a great lover and making love or fucking well, but actually the inner game in the bedroom is so important.
Well, I heard somebody once say, this is a woman actually, an older woman, and she said sex is basically, so much of it is psychological, which I think is true,
especially for women.
Yeah, so much of that is true, isn't it,
Yeah.
Because we just, I mean, I don't know, as a guy, we just kind of, we see the attractive body parts, and we just kind of, right, so
that's it.
No problem.
It works, and let's go.
Yeah. So, I mean, and how long have you been doing it for now?
6 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you really enjoy it.
I love it. Yeah.
Because, you were talking the other day, weren't you, when we were in the bar with James, and you were saying this is your
my
passion.
purpose, mission in life.
And you never thought that before. You never thought,
no.
When you were, as David would say, when you were that 15-year-old boy, you weren't thinking like,
I'm going to become the best sex coach. No, absolutely not. Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's really fascinating, and I think one of the great things about the fact that you're part of this. I mean, I've got my own channel, James has got his independent thing. We all work together, and I think the fact that you're now part of the group, the part of the family, is
the team
is really great, because I do other companies teach this stuff? Maybe they do, but I don't hear
It's
about
not
it.
a lot, especially mixing dating and sex, which
And-
I think it's amazing. You don't see that a lot.
And it's so important because, to reiterate what I alluded to before, if you're, like, say, you know, we're always saying to guys, right, you're on a date with the girl, you've got to escalate, right? You've got to move things towards sex. But the problem is, if you're secretly worried and thinking, I don't know what I'm doing,
Yep.
or I'm going to suffer from premature ejaculation or ED or whatever it is, then you're going to be more reticent to move things forward. And she doesn't necessarily know that unless you tell her. And I don't know if you think telling her is a good idea. Maybe you do, but then the problem is she might see you as being less attractive because she's like, well, hang on a minute, this guy's meant to be leading this thing. This guy's meant to know what he's doing.
But even further is that you will see a lot of men who become good at seduction, at game, but they have no clue in the bedroom. So
Yeah.
they present themselves like these very confident and masculine men, but as soon as they come in the room, they're like, oh, I don't know. And the woman
Yeah.
is like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
He was fully masculine and confident 2 minutes ago, and now we are in the bedroom, he's a completely different man.
Yeah, I mean, so in my experience of this stuff, I mean, ideally, and I'm not claiming to be the world's greatest lover, maybe the world's second greatest lover after you. But, you know, I mean, look, I'm not making huge claims, but I think that you kind of need to have both.
Yeah.
Or at least you need to have proficiency
Yeah.
in the sexual side of things. How important do you think sex is? I mean, I have heard stories from female friends, you know, talking about their friends and their dating app, you know, and sometimes it's very brutal, but you know, a guy will come back and he's no good and that's it, you know, he gets ghosted. Do you think that's a reality?
Yeah, I think it's super important. It's like for one night stand or long-term relationship, I think it's one of the cornerstone, because when you think about it, you wouldn't enjoy a long-lasting relationship with someone you have crappy sex or bad sex. It has to be part. I'm not saying like it's the most important, but it is part of the foundation.
Do you believe that sex is the glue that holds relationships together? Is that fair to say?
I do believe it, yes.
Yeah.
Because the question is, do you know a lot of long-lasting, healthy relationship when there's no sex?
Well, I don't, but then obviously you never quite know what's happening behind closed doors, do you?
Sure.
But, I mean, all right, here's another question. Do you think it's possible? Because the thing that people always say is the sex starts to fall off after a bit, blah, blah, blah. Do you think it's possible to maintain a healthy sex life over a long-term relationship?
Yeah, I do believe. And
Okay.
and we go back to seduction. Are you seducing your
Are
lady?
you just good at this? Are you just good at this because you've got this French accent? I mean, come on, man. I've got this-
Always. That's the secret. We never tell. Just be French.
Are you even French, really? Or are you
No,
actually French?
I'm pretending. I'm pretending.
Yeah, because you've got such a great accent for this. I think people, you know, for whatever reason, French is one of those accents that is just deemed to be incredibly seductive.
But do you know that the sexiest one is Irish? Irish has been named the sexiest accent.
I think you said that the other day. I mean, I've certainly been in situations where there's an Irish dude and girls are like, oh my god, that's really cool. You know? I mean, English in some places surprisingly ticks boxes. I mean, they say, I think certain parts of America.
Yeah.
But when we were in, for example, Russia, actually, funnily enough, or Ukraine, places like that, they say, oh, I really like your accent. So, you know, I think geographically,
It's exotic, yeah.
geographically, it depends where you are, but I think it does make a difference.
Yeah.